He'd inherited a lighthouse? Ben Garrison stared at the dark-haired attorney, inhaled a lungful of the tangy, salt-laced air drifting in through the open window, and wiped a hand down his face. No way. Skip wouldn't do that to him. It must be jet lag playing tricks on him. After all the flights he'd taken through multiple time zones to reach the Oregon coast, he was definitely in zombie land. And frequent changes in air pressure could mess with a person's ears, distort words. At least he hoped that was the explanation. Otherwise, this say goodbye and take a few weeks to decompress trip was going to turn into one gigantic headache. Gripping his mug of coffee, he gave the view from the window a sweep. Usually the peaceful scene of bobbing boats in Hope Harbor's protected marina had a calming effect. Not today. Bracing, he refocused on the man across from him. Tell me, you didn't say lighthouse. Sorry. Eric Nash folded his hands on the round conference table and gave him a commiserating grimace. I wish I could. Ben closed his eyes and stifled a groan. I take it you weren't aware of this unique asset in your grandfather's estate? No. Ben took a long slug of his coffee, willing the caffeine to kick in. Nada. Too bad this brew wasn't as potent as the stuff they chugged in the forward operating base hospitals where he'd spent his days for the past 7 years. He could have used a high-octane boost about now. It's the one on Pelican Point? The man motioned toward the north. You might remember it from your visits. Your grandfather said the two of you used to walk up there in the evening. An image of the 50-foot-high, weather-beaten lighthouse dating back to 1872 flashed through his mind. And despite the ache beginning to pulse in his temples, the corners of his lips rose. Yeah, he remembered those walks. They'd been a nightly ritual during the summer visits of his youth. Fair skies or foul, they'd trekked from Skip's small house in town up the winding, rocky path to the lighthouse after dinner. The view was amazing, and the stories Skip had told about shipwrecks and danger and the steady beacon of light that guided frightened sailors home on stormy nights had stirred his youthful imagination. But his grandfather hadn't owned the place, and in the almost 2 decades since his last summer break stay at age 16, Ben couldn't recall Skip ever mentioning it. Nor had the subject come up during any of his whirlwind visits through the years. So what was going on? I have clear memories of the lighthouse. But how did he end up owning it? Ben held tight to the ceramic mug, letting the warmth seep into his fingers. After it was deactivated and decommissioned by the Coast Guard 3 years ago, the government offered it to Hope Harbor. But the cost of restoring and maintaining the property was too high, and the town declined. In the end, it was put up for auction. Ben knew where this was heading. Skip had loved that lighthouse and all it symbolized. Light in the darkness, guidance through turbulent waters, salvation for the floundering, hope for lost souls.